Hey team, welcome back to another episode of the Strength Game Podcast. I'm your host, Nick O'Brien, and this is episode number 95. The Strength Game is a weekly podcast dedicated to discussing all things physical culture with the coaches, athletes, iron enthusiasts, and experts deeply embedded in the strength game on both sides of the profession, both as coaches and as competitive athletes. I want to thank everyone who has subscribed to the show on whatever platform you listen on, who has liked, shared, commented. All that support allows us to continue to bring on expert guests and highlight more individuals in the strength game, just like our guest today. Also want to thank our sponsors. Samson Equipment has been providing uncompromising quality for over 40 years. Samson products are long-lasting and made of the highest quality equipment on the market. Each project is built from the ground up with the ability to customize every need. The team at Samson focuses on developing the highest quality relationships with their customers, in addition to providing them unparalleled quality in every piece of equipment bearing the Samson name. Learn more about Samson's professional weight room solutions and the Samson standard at samsonequipment.com. I also want to thank our sponsor, Cerberus Strength. If you're in the market for the highest quality strength conditioning gear, strongman equipment, be sure to check out cerberusstrength.com and use promo code strength_game to receive an extra 10% off your next order. And in this week's episode, I am joined by Anthony Paradis. Anthony is the Performance Dietitian for the US Army at Fort Jackson, South Carolina. Paradis has spent time in multiple sectors of the sports nutrition space. Prior to taking his current role with the US Army's H2F program in early 2023, he was a director of Olympic sports nutrition at the University of South Carolina from 2021 to 2023, and the director of sports nutrition at Tennessee Tech for 5 years from 2016 to 2021. Before entering the collegiate realm, he spent 8 years in the private space. He was a dietary technician at Lewisville Medical Center, a nutrition instructor in the School of Human Ecology at South Carolina, a dietetic intern at Texas Women's University, and personal trainer. His time in the private sector culminated as the owner of Food and Fitness LLC, where he built a 6-figure and 3-employee business from the ground up. Food and Fitness LLC was Texas' premier fitness training and nutrition studio, where Paradis was both a private practice RD and personal trainer for over 6 years. In addition to his businesses, registered dietitian work, and personal training, Paradis himself is an athlete in multiple different ventures. He's tried his hand in many different strength sports, endurance-based sports, and more. He is both a Tennessee State and Texas State record holder for powerlifting, has competed a solo 500-mile consecutive hike on the Colorado Trail in 2015, and competed on American Ninja Warrior in 2012. In addition to continuing to be an avid strength lifter. I'm excited to have him on the show today. So with all that said, let's get in the game with Tony Paradis. What's going on, everybody? Today I am excited. We have Tony Paradis on the show. How are you doing today, man?
Hey, man, I'm great. Thanks for having me here, Nick.
Yeah, of course. I'm excited. We kind of got going pretty quick in the beginning, but very transferable things between sports nutrition, sports medicine, strength conditioning. So it's great to kind of get you on, and you've been in every single sector now, working with the military population over at Fort Jackson. So I'm excited to get you on. But before we kind of get into what you do day to day and how you kind of got to that position, I really want to start with yourself, how you got involved in training sports and like what you played growing up, leading into what you're kind of currently doing today.
Yeah, sure. So the origin story is when, growing up, I just played a lot of different sports. I was never like born to do any like one thing in particular, at least that I know of. But in high school, I was a wrestler. So because of the nutrition demand of the sport, nutrition was something that was like very interesting to me. And then kind of fast forward now looking back, like I wish I would have had a strength coach and a dietitian like working with me, like knowing that like I don't need to run 5 miles to have like endurance for wrestling. Like I used to do that, right? Where I used to like eat like just do stupid things to cut weight and all that sort of stuff. And so that's like what got me interested in nutrition. So my background, my formal education is in nutrition. So I got my undergrad degree from Texas Tech. And then I have two masters now. I have a master's in nutrition and one in education, with some PhD coursework in education. But I went to the path to become a registered dietitian. So I've been a registered dietitian for 15 years now, and I have what's called the CSSD, which is the Certified Specialist in Sports Dietetics, and CSCS. So I've always been interested in really both sides. I've done a lot of coaching for performance and strength conditioning. And of course, now, right, my primary role is as a dietitian, but it's nice to be able to have those conversations. My first block of my career was in private practice. So I used to own a training studio / nutrition clinic, wellness area in the North Dallas area. I did that for, gosh, 5-7 years, something like that. Then I went into a mid-major D1 university, Tennessee Tech. I started their sports nutrition program and did that, and also adjunct taught some classes. And then I made the change to go into the SEC conference. So I was the director of Olympic sports nutrition for the South Carolina Gamecocks. And then now I'm here at Fort Jackson as a performance dietitian in the H2F program. So that's just kind of like a quick synopsis of like where I've been and what I'm doing now.
Yeah, that's awesome. I mean, it's quite an extensive resume. And like you said, you private sector, like owning your own business, like going into multiple different collegiate settings, and now like working with military population. Like, but the whole time as you were going, like you had your own training, like from inception, like being a wrestler. I know you've done a lot of different things, just as you've done a lot of different settings for sports nutrition, and even having like background in strength conditioning as well too, like being able to blend those things. Can you touch on like some of the other things you did like after high school and after like college? Like I know you were on American Ninja Warrior, like
Yeah,
got ready
yeah.
for
So
that.
I tried out for the show American Ninja Warrior. I didn't make it past the first, course or whatever, but it was a fun thing to do. I've competed in powerlifting, like as an amateur lifter, right? That's something that I still like kind of like train for. Like I'm always going for, um, trying to like just really push myself. Like I was 5 pounds away from a double body weight bench the other day. And I was like, dang, like, you got to start the training cycle over again because you've already overreached and you're like, 5 pounds, right? Um, I did a through hike through Colorado. So I hiked the Colorado Trail. It was about 500 miles from Denver to Durango. So I did that. Um, oh gosh, how was it? Almost 8 years ago. I did that. And then now, like, I compete with stuff with my colleagues and with the cadre here on post. So they'll have like a competition. Like I did a strongman competition the other day on post. And then every competition is just like a complete smoker. They're like, okay, we're gonna do like so many things, and each of these is gonna burn you out, and then we're gonna do like a second round. And it's man, like some of that stuff is just like so tough. But I'm 37 now, and it's like I really like this job because you have that sort of like sportsmanship with like people around you, like, no, we're going to sign up for this and we're going to do it. And that positive peer pressure is something where I'm like, like a lot of people take it for granted when they're high school sports or collegiate sports, of like how much that like energy like really like does for somebody in there. So that's like why now like I love working in the military setting, is because that's just such a big part of culture.
Yeah, that's great. That's like you said, positive peer pressure. It's that camaraderie, like especially in the military, is through and through. And it's something different. You get it in team sports as well. Like when you kind of like go through the suck together and you're in that
Mhm.
grind where it's a year-long thing. There's a culminating goal that everybody's working towards, but it's different in the military where like the goal is ever changing and it's not just a trophy at the end of the day. Like it means a little bit more when like lives are on the line and like it's not just a sport, it's a job, it's a livelihood, it's like safety, it's protection. It's very different, but that's cool that like you're already like embedded with the cadre and you're going together with some of the other guys you work with and just challenging yourself. Cause I think that skin in the game too is huge, especially like sports nutrition. Like it it's one thing to kind of preach it and talk
Yeah.
to military, but like them especially, and like you get it with high level athletes as well too. Like if you don't walk the walk, if you don't look the part,
Yeah.
it's a lot of times falling on deaf ears.
Yeah. 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 I would agree with that. And, for anybody that's, abutting in their career in sports performance or human performance or whatever, like just like put the effort into just like being involved with it as much as you teach, do. Is it a requirement? Like, I mean, there's always exceptions to it, but if you want to, get a lot more fulfillment out of your job or whatever, is like get like involved and immersed in it. So you just don't feel like you're a person who's like visiting and delivering services. You feel like you're part of a team. And that is at least where I'm at now. Like I really feel that depth there, where sometimes in like the collegiate environment, right? Depending on like if you were appointed by administration or if the coach brought you in. I mean, as you know, like that totally changes the dynamic. Um, and and for disclosure, right? Like I'm still new in this. Like I've only been in this position for like less than a year where I am now, but like I can already like see some of those differences where like loyalty to the team is like a little bit deeper here than what I've seen in some other places, not by like choice, but just like by the design of the program and like the culture of it. Um, and and those are just my experiences, right? Like other people, like they just stay in collegiate, they just stay in pro because like they get that there. Um, but like this is a super cool opportunity. Maybe I'm still in the honeymoon phase, but this is just where I'm at right now.
No, it's great. I mean, I think like you said, a lot of people maybe think in the beginning, whatever their first job is or whatever the setting is, they think that's the one they want. But oftentimes there's so many different settings that you could be in and still have a career with what you're doing, whether it's rehabilitation side, it's a nutrition, sports psych, strength conditioning, coaching. There's so many different avenues you can take. Oftentimes people don't explore them and then they get stuck into whatever one they are and they feel like that they can't jump ship and then transfer those same skills into a different setting. And I know we talked about it a little bit before, like a lot of the nutritional stuff that you end up talking about and like preaching and like educating your soldiers on are similar things that you were doing with your athletes as well. Like those things are not mutually exclusive.
Yeah, yeah, um, yeah. To kind of piggyback on that is just um, you're trying to initiate behavior change when you're a practitioner, right? So if you're a coach, you're initiating the behavior change of lifting weights and doing strength conditioning exercises that are congruent with like the best scientific methods, best practices, and best for that individual or the culture of the program. And by doing that, you you facilitate the results that they get. So you get a change in body composition, you get a change in strength, and therefore you have a soldier who can run between, maybe buildings a little bit faster, right? So these I mean, like in a combat setting or in a non-combat setting, like you teach a soldier how to eat better. For example, like we're in TRADOC, right? So like a drill sergeant had to take care of their life in that setting so that they can have more energy when they come home and be able to take off that hat and be a family man, right? Like it I think that like it gets exciting to think about like some of the high stakes stuff, like, man, you're gonna work with this guy and like he's gonna be jumping out of airplanes and like getting him at the right body weight and being able to have like the right amount of energy, like for that, like that is um yeah, that's that part of it. But like you're helping the human being, like this person also has to get promoted at some point. It's going to work behind a desk more at some point. Is going to have kids and it's going to be a model to like their kids. And so the like the shotgun effect of that, of everything that you're doing is like really important. And then as far as like the day to day, like operationally, what that looks like, yeah, like you're going to work with somebody and they're like, okay, so I just PCS'd here and like my whole life is turned upside down. I'm eating out a lot. I'm not making time for things that like I had when I was in more of a rhythm, like at the other place. Or like I just had a kid and like, how do I get my nutrition right? Or, sometimes I'll help people's spouses out too. So we'll help out families or whatever, knowing that that person might be very busy, but they have a spouse that wants to help with the nutrition, like management of the family, and knowing that that is still going to help us like to accomplish our mission of keeping our soldiers ready. So, a lot of similar things you see with young people in sports is like the temptation to like overconsume alcohol, finding a balance between social life and sleep, um, wanting to use more like convenience foods and eat out more when they should be maybe planning and preparing from this. So these are just basic life skills. And a lot of what I talk about too is like financial management is like a lot of these, a lot of the people that I work with, right, after they go to their AIT, now they start getting that paycheck. They're out of basic training. So what do? Well, they want to enjoy themselves. They want to enjoy their money and their time. And like I would too, right? But that can start snowballing as like, well, why did you join the army? I joined the army to get out of like poverty. I joined to get out of a bad situation. Okay, so who taught you how to eat? Well, maybe nobody, right? Both your parents worked. Like I'm just using a scenario here, right? Like everybody is different, is cut from a different cloth. But um, now you're working with somebody who is like they just haven't been taught the basics. Like, okay, so you're eating out, let's see, 3 times a week. Well, how much do you spend when you eat out? Okay. And how often do you do that? Do you get drinks and appetizers too? It's like, okay, besides the fact that like you're trying to lose 10 pounds, like, dude, you're spending an extra $600 every month on like dining out. You know, let's like see how like all this fits into the big picture. And also because you're going to the bar and getting drinks, like your sleep management isn't there, either. So that's what's nice about being part of the H2F program is like I can just like take them right after this. I'm like, hey, talk to our sleep coach. Like, let's just get some basics down with that. Or like I was working with a cadre the other day and he's like, oh, I'm trying to build muscle. I'm like, all right, well, let me take a look at your workout program. And this guy was only doing like 5 sets of like a muscle group like every week. So he's doing like three, like one day of like chest, for example, like 3 sets of bench press and like 2 sets of push-ups. Well, I'm like, bro, like that's why you're not growing. Like, the volume isn't there. And and I'm not watching you training. So I don't know if you're like training your heart out or if you're just like mailing it in. So I can take him and I can take him over to the strength coach and be like, here, like, work with this person. Um, or if they have an injury, right? I can take them to the physical therapist. So I really like all that. And then like to be able to do that, I think is, I mean, that is like the tier one stuff. And like also like what coaches need to understand is like there is some like really advanced stuff and some magic bullets and stuff like that. But like the best athletes and the coaches in the world, like they just get better at the basics. Okay, now like I'm a wrestler, so I'm gonna like use the Dan Gable story, right? So like Olympic wrestler Dan Gable, like what was his takedown? Like his favorite one was like the double leg takedown. Did he know how to do every takedown? Yeah. But did he master one like so well that just like people just couldn't stop him from doing that. Like sometimes you just do like one thing like so ruthlessly good that uh, that you're just like always successful in the way that you execute it because you instead of thinking about like, and sorry if I'm like going on a tangent here, but like, like all this like tactical nutrition stuff for like, oh, should I be taking like creatine, like, 5 grams or whatever, or should I be taking like, like the ester like branch chain of that, or is it 300 milligrams or 200 milligrams of caffeine? And I'm like, this is great stuff to talk about. I'm just like so excited that you're interested in nutrition, but bro, you're not eating breakfast and you go to bed at 7 p.m., right? And then you wake up and then you go to PT and then you're not eating breakfast until 10 a.m. That's why you don't have any energy, right? It's like we'll get to that last 5%, but like let's get you to give me your first 80% first. Um, it's fun. It's fun to work with people where you like really are dialing something in. You're like, yeah, we're gonna modify your body fat by this little bit. We're going to get you ready for Ranger school. And so we're going to kind of like work on like some kind of special like methods to help you like mentally and like physically like prepare for that. But a majority of what I do is like helping the people that are kind of like, man, I've never worked with a dietitian before. Like I don't know what you're going to tell me. Like I get advice from other people on social media, and this is what my drill sergeant taught me and all that. But it's nice to be able to be like, yeah, like actually, here's how it works, here's how it doesn't, and we just need to take like the PACE approach to your nutrition, right? So primary, alternative, contingency, emergency plan, like they understand that, and I'm like, primary, pack your lunch. Alternative, like leave tuna packs and crackers and like fruit cups up at the office, right? Contingency, all right, this is where you're going to go out to eat like on post. This is where you're not going to go. Like if you give them like those like levels of things, they're like, oh, I see what it is. I think that I'm doing the right thing, but I do it 70% of the time. And then 30% of the time it's like whatever happens. And you're like, yeah, that's where the magic is. It's going from 70% to 90% and being consistent with very basic things. And then you become that individual that is top tier. Like your body will respond in a way that does that. And along the way, cool, I want to have that conversation about supplements and about nutrient timing and all those sorts of things. But there's kind of an order of operations to go with, and most of the gains are made in the first, in mastering the basics. Just like probably if you're doing 5 sets of an exercise, right, you're getting most of the physiological benefit out of the first 3 sets. You do that extra because like you're that high speed individual. But like some people are like, oh, like my legs won't grow. Well, I don't train them. I'm like, okay, dude, just like go do 1 set of calves, right? Or like I get that you can't like you're not motivated to run, but run from your car like to where you're supposed to be. Like some of these things can get people a lot better because their deficit is so great there that it's like that anything works kind of philosophy. So I know I jumped around a lot there, but maybe that kind of just gives you some insight into like sort of my philosophy and like what I've seen. Like I used to be like a hard ass, right? Like I can coach you as hard as you want to be coached. I've worked with people that have gone to the Olympics. I've worked with pro athletes and all that. But like there's a time and a place for that. And it's not all the time and it's not everybody.
No, that's great. I mean, you touched on a lot of stuff, but I mean, going through basic training myself and like I have experience like in the strength conditioning coaching realm and with sports nutrition, like watching others like see like their eyes open when they go in and they're like forced to have like vegetables on their plate and they don't even know what the names of them are. It blew my mind. But no, that's great. Like you talked about a lot of stuff, like just putting nutrition into like the PACE plan and like speaking the vocabulary like that happens in the military, like that clicks for them right away. And then
Yeah.
a lot of the stuff you talked about, just like they're transferable stuff that even college athletes need to know about, like general population need to know about. The hard part with the military is like time is even more precious because if you feel like they're always doing something, and because there's such like strict doctrine with the training schedule and PTs early in the morning, and you
Yeah.
have to be here at certain times, you have to be even more diligent about when you plan things, and you have to prepare even harder ahead of time and realize that ideal is not always the same. So like a lot of times
Yeah. Right.
those primaries are not always primary, but no, that's awesome to kind of see like the wheels turn for you because new in this realm in this setting, like it's very different. And obviously TRADOC is its own beast working with everybody.
Yeah. Yeah. And like what can you get like as a universal approach to this? It's like one is learn like the culture and the language like of the people that you're working with and do it in an authentic way. There's some things that I don't like I don't say and like vocabulary I don't use. Like I don't go up to people like hula, and try to like be something that I'm not, right? But like if we're talking about like planning something out, like they are taught the pace approach. And so it's just like not like I'm trying to be fraudulent or pretentious or something. It's like, look, here's something and that works for you, right? So you've had examples where the primary didn't happen, you went with the alternative. Um, like, why aren't you doing that for your nutrition if that's been so successful for you? And they're like, oh, like I didn't think about that. I've always been, this is the right way and this is the wrong way. And yeah, and there's some things that have standards like that. But as like if I can quote Nick Merringer, right? He says it's better to be consistently good than occasionally great. And so I'm trying to teach people to just be consistent, like have a purpose, put some thought into it, and like make it easier, right? So here's an example, like meal planning. They get their ideas like, okay, meal planning. I'm gonna go grocery shopping, and then I'm gonna spend half my Sunday like cooking everything up and like packing it up. If you like doing that, cool. I don't like doing that because I like to have a little bit more free time. So half of what I teach them is like, hey, you can order your groceries online. So every active duty person can use the commissary. It's like the Click to Go app, so they can order their groceries on there, and then they'll do the grocery shopping for them. And they can swing by and pick it up. Okay, well, how much time did we save doing that? And now you don't have to think about it all at the same time. So during the week, you like, okay, I need to get some more protein shakes, so you add that or whatever, and then you order it on Friday. Okay, so there's half the thing of like meal prep. The other thing is like, why can't you just order more convenience foods? Do you have to go home and cook the chicken? Order two rotisserie chickens, right? Get a thing of like the pre-made like baked beans. Use like more frozen vegetables. And meal prep can just simply be like assembling meals. You can go to any catering department of any grocery store, um, or anybody that caters really, and tell them like, I want you to make me a tray of chicken, a tray of vegetables, a tray of rice. And then you just take that home and you divvy it up. You can buy the pre-made like meal prep stuff, but like you're paying like three times the amount than if you like just did those examples, that I gave you. Or if you make a really good dinner and you really like that, why don't you just start making double portions? Now you pack your lunch the next day. That's meal prep. It doesn't all have to happen at the same time. So a lot of what I'll do is I'll kind of like understand like where they want to go, and then I'll see the barriers for like what they're doing. And a lot of it is that they want to jump all in at the same time and like perfect it. And so we just kind of, right, I mean, basic psychology, right? Basic coaching. We just break it down. We chain the behavior. We're not teaching the clean and jerk. We're teaching the hang clean, the split jerk, the front squat, and then we piece it together, right? And now we have like that complex movement. The same thing with nutrition. So we break it down. We we get them to where the habits are there, and then we start tweaking things. And and that's where like a lot of people are successful. That's where like you can be more successful as a coach. So you got to have the technical knowledge, right? You got to have the buy-in from like the culture. Like so like a lot of what I'll do is I'll just get there like early in the morning, and I'll be there for PT, and I might run with some people, or I might be there with the drills in the morning while some guys are getting some things set up, and just be like, hey, just here to check in on you. Like, I'm not trying to like have a session right then, but just some like that old saying, like people don't care how much you know until they know how much you care. Um, I don't really feel like I'm doing my job if I just sit around my office and wait for people to come to me. Like I need to go out to them and just make them feel like I'm trying to do right by them. Like they know like I'm just like, and I tell them like I'll never have the lived experience you do. But what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to be more understanding so I can do right by you guys. I think just like being transparent, like having that conversation, like at least like somebody is going to hear that, right? So you have your technical knowledge, right? Your skill set, you have your culture that you immerse in, right? And then the third thing you need to look at is your systems. So like what's going on like around where we thought something was a good idea, but it's not like really being executed. So there are these things in all public places. They're called desire paths. Have you heard that term before, Nick?
No.
Desire path. So like a desire path is when the like when the campus or whatever builds the sidewalk like this, there's a 90-degree angle, but you got to go from here to here. What do you see in the grass, right? You see where people actually walk, and there's
Right.
this little trail. And I love those things because I always like see that, and like now I'm gonna kind of like pick on like the top down approach, right? A lot of colleges do this. Like we're gonna build this big centralized fueling station and everyone's gonna eat there. And it's like, well, what about the baseball team that practices over there, right? Or like we're gonna build this giant like H2F facility and everyone's gonna come here to train. It's like, well, why would they do that if they have like a little gym like in their imprint that they can use? Like you'll see where like these things like sound like really good ideas, but people love convenience. And so you got to go to them. Like you got to figure out what are these systems that are actually like happening, and not be upset that like people are lazy. Understand that people look for efficiency, and you got to like meet them where they're at. And sometimes what doesn't necessarily like look as grand actually gets the job done a lot better. Because like we're always looking for that shortcut. I mean, how many times have you opened up the fridge and been frustrated because you're like, oh, I don't have any food, I just have ingredients. You're just looking for that clamshell leftover package. You just want to heat something up. Like when you know very well 15 minutes later you could probably have a meal. But that's just how we are. Like we're always looking for that um like that quick answer. And I think if you embrace it rather than say like, oh, people are lazy, they don't want to like sacrifice or whatever. Well, you don't anyway. You're always looking for shortcuts. It's just what people do. So those are kind of the three buckets that I look at is like, be the best practitioner you can be the best, like work on your soft skills and improving the culture and how you speak to people and how you interact with people and diving in and then look at the systems. Part of that system could be like the way that people schedule appointments. So like one thing we did is like instead of like emailing back and forth and like, oh, does this time work for you? Does this time work for you? Right? We use that little button in the Microsoft Outlook where you can actually send somebody your schedule and open up your availability. And so we just started like doing that as a first practice, and that helps with that communication. Excuse me. So if you look at those three things and you document it and you create those standard operating procedures and kind of like, okay, this is what we did, and you like revisit it with your team. Now you have a playbook. Now you're kind of touching on all three of those buckets, and you can only get better from there. I mean, so that's one man's opinion.
No, that's awesome. I mean, you took another one of those army approaches too. It's like it's a crawl, walk, run approach. I mean, that's the army is all about Barney style, just breaking it down as basic as possible. And like, I mean, to your point, you're right. Like we're humans, we're kind of creature of habits, and we're always going to look for the most efficient, the easiest route. So rather than try to shy away from those things and be upset when maybe you're coming from 15 years as an RD and have all the knowledge and like you have the passion for it, not looking down upon someone that does just really doesn't have any idea where to even start. Because I think the military in a lot of ways they take things to the extreme, and it's an all or none approach. They're like the opposite of what you would want unless it's on the good side. So if you have someone that comes in and has no idea about nutrition, and you're talking about consistency and building those routines and good habits, they're doing that. They have routines and habits that are so poor because they take it to the extreme. So rather than try to flip it on its head and give them great habits to the extreme, you just have to start building them up small by small and make consistencies until they really embrace it, and run from there. So no,
Yeah.
that's
And that's what
awesome.
I love about this job, because a lot of times I'm the first person they've met with to do that. So like when I'm working with pros and collegiates, you're just another person that like replaced the last dietitian that they've been working with. They've been getting coached up since they were like 12 years old, right? And like a lot of these guys are like, no, I didn't know you could do that. Like I was just skipping dinner because I thought you couldn't eat late, right? Or I wonder why I'm not hungry all day because I use like caffeine as a stimulant, and I'm also like using tobacco, and it's like, and then I get home and I overeat and I don't have any energy. And like, look, man, like I get it. Like there's a reason why people smoke or dip. Like it makes you feel good in the moment, right? Like like obviously if it made people just like puke or whatever, like it made them feel bad, they wouldn't do it. You know what I mean? Like I get it, but there's a difference between like stimulation and like real energy, right? So like that's a conversation that I have with people. And I'm not like, oh man, you shouldn't dip, it's unhealthy. I'm just like, hey, if you do this, this is what's happening. You may not want that to be happening. You may want this to be happening because these are your goals. These aren't your goals, right? Like this isn't a morality contest. Like I don't like I personally don't care what you do. Like, yeah, I mean, like for me, like I tell them, like I drink, and like I probably love beer too much. Like that's why I have to limit like the days like that I allow myself like to have it and the time period that I allow myself to have it. Because I get off work, like every day I get off work. You know what sounds really good after driving home in that hot South Carolina weather? Freaking ice cold beer, man.
Yeah,
But if I were to do that every day, it's not really conducive to my goals.
right.
So it's just like it's not like it's bad. Like beer's great. Like I love it. It's just a trade-off. What's more important to me right now? So like this is just I think kind of where you said like things are either good or bad or whatever. It's just like be approachable with people. They're like, oh man, don't laugh, but like I eat honey bun for breakfast. I'm like, I love honey buns. They're freaking delicious. But that's why I don't bring them home because I'll eat them because they're delicious. Like just like being real with people, like too, like with exercise, like I'm like, man, like if I could just take a pill and like feel and look the way I would, like I could go freaking exercise. Like this is like plastic surgery for poor people. Like I'm just like trying to like I'm trying to invest and like get something out of this. Like, yeah, I do love training arms, but there are some days where I just like mail it in too. But it's that consistency that's important for that. So anyway, sorry to go off on that. But yeah, man,
No,
like
go on
I love
tangents,
talking
man.
shop. Right? Like I just love talking shop.
No, I think too, like everything you're saying, everything starts with a conversation. It's authenticity that you're having with the soldiers, like just going out into their world, like joining PT, talking to everybody, like whether it be from the cadre, going all the way down to like a fuzzy wuzzy private. Like it you need to talk to everybody, and for them to see you and for you to like be able to have the conversation with them and be able to like you said, not laugh at them, not judge them. All day, especially in TRADOC, you're told what to wear, where to be, what to do at all times. Like no one gives a shit about your opinion. So finally, for once, it is not their peer, someone that is trying to help in a different way is coming up and is actually trying to listen to what you have to say specifically and help you versus tell you what to do. And I think
Yeah.
that's a great approach to take versus like stand up at the front of the class and death by PowerPoint teach them exactly what it is.
Yeah. Yeah. And full disclosure, like I help the drills to train the trainees. If I do talk to the trainees, it's always just like very basic, right? Like, hey, like ask me any question you ever had about nutrition. Because if you don't, then you're gonna start doing whatever else you had assigned for the day. And they're like, oh, okay, like suddenly I have a question, right? So that helps to kind of lubricate the conversation a bit. But I'm always like, look, when you're in the DFAC, eat as much as you can. Just eat as much as you can. And they're like, oh, what if I can't eat that much? Well, and then I'm like, do it anyway. Like, and if you can't, like, start drinking like calories. Get the milk. Like, get the Uncle Sam's punch, or like whatever's in there. I was like, you just need to eat and like just be focused on like eating as much as you can. Salt your food. Like, isn't salt bad for you? I'm like, it's probably bad for office workers. Like, you are now working out more than you ever will in your entire life, right? And eat some of the green foods. Like, go for some of those green options too. So just like, because like who really gained weight in basic? you know maybe you did, right? Maybe you came from a family that not necessarily you, but like other people, right? Other people came from a family that maybe eating once a day was lucky, right? And so now you're in the military, and oh man, I get to eat 3 times a day. Maybe they do anyway, but like a lot of people don't, because they are so active that and this is a saying I have, like with cadre or trainees or whatever: what can be the worst thing for you on the couch can be the best thing for you in the field. I don't want you to just like sit around all day at your office job and eat, mountains of food or whatever. But like, if you just like, if you're training as much as you are in basic training, or in like a really high demanding stress situation, like a tray of chicken, broccoli, and brown rice becomes unhealthy because it's not enough. Like, I'd rather you get fried rice and like a fattier cut of beef and you know richer foods, and eat a dinner roll with that, and drink some lemonade with that or whatever, because like you're about to use it. And so also teaching people, when they understand that like there are no good or bad foods, there's just like it's just situation, like nuanced. And that comes a lot like as they progress in the army, right? So like as you're in like your E1 through E3, like there's a right way to do things and there's a wrong way to do things, and these are the rules and these ain't the rules, right? And then as you get up and like you're in that NCO, like you start learning that like, okay, like I have to make some judgment calls, and they're like, I have my left and right limits, but there's like some more like latitude in that. In the same way that people learn about their nutrition is starting with some rules and structure is like very good. It is for a lot of people, especially if they've never had that, right? What's the most important thing you can have to accomplish your goal? You have some structure for doing that, right? But then as you educate them, they learn like the nuance of it, that like there's different things for different situations. And it just helps them to become more empowered, because their jobs can change so much. They're going to have so many different opportunities. They're going to be in so many different places that they can take that with them. So that's something that I like when I see that light go off in their head as well.
Right. Yeah. I think that's a great thing to do. Like basically teach them all the stuff that they can take with them. So, I mean, the best thing for you, like teaching the drills, and that gets passed down, like it's multiplying versus you just being at like one schoolhouse where you're only working with that company of trainees. You're working with all the drill sergeants, and that's going across the battalion. So you're impacting more people in a way, because now the drills know what to do a little bit more. But yeah, eat as much as you can. Don't take anything back to the barracks. That's all you got to do. But
Yeah.
hey, the one thing I wanted to ask you, like obviously like your training has changed over the course of your time, from powerlifting like to doing Ninja Warrior stuff and to going on like the hikes, and like you said, you're kind of an outdoor enthusiast.
Oh
Being
yeah.
like a sports dietitian and like performance dietitian, oftentimes it's like pretty hard, at least based off my experience and a lot of people, it's hard to kind of take your own advice. Like, have you been able to use like these different training ventures that you've done, these different kind of competitions, as like a way to test like theories for yourself nutritionally? Is it driven by that a little bit, or is it more so like, hey, this is a physical output, this is something I want to try? Or are you always kind of tying nutritional aspects into it just based off like your professional career?
Yeah. So, well, first is like my identity, right? So, like, I identify as um, somebody who like wants to be a leader and a role model, and to share something with somebody. So, part of that is like my physical business card. So, like how I look and like how I present myself has an immediate impact on the people that I'm coaching. So there's that like level of like self-responsibility there. And I know that's not the only thing, but if I'm going to play the game of chess, I'm going to use all the pieces. So like I do take my career very seriously because I feel like it's a very serious thing to be able to help somebody to like improve their life for the rest of their life. So like there's that part of it, right? So I don't necessarily like feel like I have to train because like I have to. I train it as like a result of like my identity. Like it's a very big different thing to say that like I eat lots of like I don't eat meat or like I'm a vegan. Like one of those phrases has a little bit more power in it, right? Like I'm not drinking right now versus I don't drink, right? So like my identity is like I'm a performance dietitian and coach. So I try to act with things like congruent with that, right? So I don't have that cognitive dissonance, right? Like the other thing too is I'm very big on like cyclical training, and I don't just mean like periodization for the event. I mean like training with the seasons. So in the spring and the fall, for example, I kind of modify my training so that I'm doing more like endurance type of stuff so that I can enjoy like long hikes and like being outdoors more. Right. In the middle of summer and winter, like when I don't really want to be outside that much, I'm doing more work in the gym, more of that barbell work. So I think that, two is kind of like understanding like the battle rhythm of your life and setting up a plan to be more successful like with that, like go with the flow than against it, is that has been a culminating experience over the course of my life that like I have found that like you got to have different methods for what period of life that you're in and be able to like identify that. So for example, like one big thing I've been doing like now that I've done this, like that I'm doing this like new job, right, is like I'm a really big fan of like micro training or like whatever you want to call it, right? So like as long as my volume and intensity is equated, like what if I get to work and I want to do like my heavy squats and my hip hinges, and then I go to work or whatever, and like that 30 minutes during lunch, I can do some of my like my other leg like exercises, right? And then when I get home, like maybe I put on my BFR cuffs on my calves or whatever, and I just do like some like terrible calf training. Okay, well I just equated all my volume, but I did it in a way where I didn't have to stop, travel to go do this, exhaust all my energy, or like go take a shower in between all that, right? Like I guess like depending on what I'm doing. Um, and so like that's one thing I like about like the culture of like some things like air assault school or whatever. Like you got to do 5 pull-ups before you enter the building, and like and when you leave, like dude, that's training that works, right? Like Reed Pavel's like Grease the Groove, and like some like one of the strongest like squats I ever had. I was like squatting in like the mid 400s, like I only weigh like a buck 50 or buck 60 by the way, is like I was just like squatting all the time, but I was like doing just like these micro training sessions to like get the motor pattern and get the familiarity with it. So like I try to make my training so that it is more like that. Now what I'm doing is I'm trying to get a 600 in the ACFT, right? So I'm kind of changing my training so that I can like compete with these guys and kind of goad them a little bit, like be competitive, and also kind of like understand like what they're going through. So like I do like the new challenge of that. Like with the eating and stuff too is like I just plan to kind of like go with the flow so that I'm not putting extra effort into something that I maybe don't want to do anyway, right? So like in the middle of summer, like that's where I'm going to like be a little bit more liberal with my diet, or like, have some extra beers or like something like that, because like I'm not like traveling more, or like I'm not like trying to do a lot of outdoor stuff. So, like I'm like anybody, like I'll entertain myself with food more. And then, like January through March, right? That's where I really like to dial it in and be more of kind of like stricter on myself, right? Because it's like it's super cold out. I can do more training. I can do more like endurance stuff outside because I'm not like heat catting or whatever. And then like there's no holidays between then. so I don't have to worry about Thanksgiving, Christmas, and New Year's or whatever. So I think that, and a lot of that is just like managing my expectations. Like once like November gets here, if I just have an expectation of like weight management, and I'm not going to get shredded or anything, right? Then I'm still going to probably do the same stuff. I'm just not going to beat myself up over it and like be disappointed with it, you know. And then I also recommend that everybody has three different ways that they train. One thing that you do in a group. So for a lot of people, like they like CrossFit or like or their PT or like something they do where they get that positive peer pressure. One thing that you do for yourself. So some people are runners, some people are weightlifters. Right, I'm more of a weightlifter. And then one thing that you do that is physically active, but it's so fun that it doesn't feel like activity. Right. So for me, that's hiking or like playing any like sort of game. Like, okay, do you want to go run a bunch of sprints or do you just want to like play basketball against your friends and just like be kind of competitive? Like, probably if you're not trying to be an elite athlete, like both of those things are going to get you to an almost equal amount of like fitness. One of them's not going to feel like work. Like one of them might. And that's for you to decide. And then for nutrition, I recommend adopting kind of four different philosophies here. Like one of those is going to be the balanced eating or like the plate method, right? I need to eat a plant, a protein, and a carb with each of my meals and make it like mostly wholesome, those sorts of things, right? The second thing I recommend is some sort of like tracking system. So there might be a time in your life where you have to dial it in. So you use like a macro tracking or you check your weight. There's two different ways to do that, right? One is just kind of a self-assessment. The other would be like actually like following it, right? So you get to kind of choose on how aggressive you get with that. The third thing I would recommend is some sort of like planning method. So like meal prep and like planning ahead. And then the fourth thing is like more intuitive approach. Like like if you're eating just because it's time to eat, not because you're hungry, like kind of listening to your body and your energy like a little bit. So I'll tell you, like most of the time, I'm just eating balanced meals and I am eating wholesome foods. If I have a very specific goal I'm trying to reach, like I'm trying to lose like my last 5 pounds, or I'm trying to put on a very specific amount of muscle, I'm going to use a combination of like tracking things and like meal planning, right? If I have a really busy time in my life, like meal prep for sure, not even because it's like the way to do it, but because it just like makes sense. It's like either that or eating out. Like I don't have the money to eat out all the time. Like maybe I do, right? But like I'd rather spend my money on something else stupid. And then number four is like intuitive. Like this is what I'm doing when I'm going on vacation, right? Or I'm traveling. Or I don't have any of those. Like I don't have really control over what I'm doing, right? So like I just need to have an understanding, like okay, like reasonably, like how active am I going to be that day, and like am I like eating extravagant breakfasts? Like maybe my lunch doesn't need to be as extravagant. You just like kind of balance it out and just kind of use some just like intuitive guidelines on how you do that. I don't really like the word intuitive eating because like some other people like kind of hijack that term. I just call it like auto regulation. Like how do I feel? How does my body respond to that? And instead of like training to a max percentage, like I'm using RPE, right? Or reps in reserve or like something like that. So if you want to use the strength coach terminology. So by having three different ways that I stay active and four different approaches to nutrition, no matter what life throws at me, I have a system to be able to meet the demands of that time in my life rather than try to change my life around my diet plan. I make my diet plan follow my life rather than change my life to follow my fitness program. I make my fitness program follow my life. Yes, there is a level of self-discipline with that. Yes, there is a level of like self like restriction in sometimes and indulgences in others. But I think if you generally like take that approach of having like different options and all of them are the right answer, that you'll be more successful.
Yeah, those are great guidelines. I mean, kind of making a foolproof plan where you don't have to be so rigid to something. You have contingencies already set in place and it revolves around what you already do. That's awesome. That's great advice for anybody that's kind of, I mean, even starting off or already been along on the journey. I'm going to steal some of those things because I meal prep, but it's just kind of because coaching is you're on the floor at all times. I
Yeah.
I don't, even if I had the money, I don't have the time to go get food. So if it's not there, I'm not eating. So
Yeah. And you better than anybody else.
yeah. Awesome. Hey, well, Tony, like any good training session, we end the show with a finisher. So I got 4 quarters, 4 questions, and overtime at the end. So you can go rapid fire fast, or you can expand on any of the questions. But are you ready?
Okay, we're going rapid fire because I think I heard my wife calling for me. So
All right,
let's
here
go.
we go. First one I got for you: biggest influence in the sports nutrition field and favorite athlete growing up.
Oh gosh. Biggest influence in the sport nutrition field. I'm gonna kind of like cheat at that answer, and I'm gonna say kind of like the spheres that I've been like influenced by, right? So one is gonna be like the dietitians that like coached me up. So just like being a dietitian and being part of like the practice groups of like shipping and stuff like that, I've had a lot of great mentors. And then also like being like younger and like just posting on like the bodybuilding.com like forums and just being stupid with other people. Like it would like I've just always loved to talk shop. So like those are a couple of things. Um, gosh, my favorite athlete growing up. Um, I just have to say like Arnold Schwarzenegger, man. Like I watched that like Pumping Iron documentary. Like I always wanted to be big like Arnold, and I just loved his larger than life personality and the guy's just a riot. Like I would love to have him train me for a couple sessions, right? So that's
Nice.
my answer for them.
Hey, so if you like when you're not actually like on post, you're not training yourself, what are some of your hobbies outside of like the barbell and from sports nutrition?
I got a couple. Like I really love playing disc golf because I'm out in the woods. It's free and I can pick it up anytime. Like that kind of fits my personality of like commitment for like doing something fun. I really love gardening. As I like landscaping, I like kind of building things. I like making things out of wood or like doing projects around my house. My dad was a mechanic, so always grew up doing handy stuff. Um, and then sometimes just like to veg out, like just like play like video games or just like watch some stupid YouTube videos or like just like watch a movie with my wife. So I try to have like different hobbies for like whatever energy level I'm feeling that day. So um, you know, variety is the spice of life. So and most importantly, like anything new, always down to try something new.
There you go. Tears for relaxation too. There you go. Hey,
Yeah,
so
really, man. Yeah, it is.
if you weren't doing what you're currently doing, what do you think you would be doing as a career right now? And if you could pick any sport to go pro in, what would that be?
Gosh. Well, if I wasn't doing this, I guess like a cop out answer would be like just like coaching somebody like in something like mentorship or like even like financial planning. Like just like I just like teaching people like, hey man, like here's how you just like kind of get some stuff on lockdown and just like makes your life easier. So like I just like stuff like that. If I was doing like something like completely like unrelated, yeah, it'd just be hard to say. Like maybe just like having a homestead, just like living off the grid and just like my job is just taking care of myself and my family and my like my food source and all that. And then what was your other question? If I could go pro in any sport?
Yeah.
Um, if I could go pro in any sport, what sport would it be? That's a good question, man. I'm just gonna say like, professional rock climbing. Like that sounds like rad. Just like sponsor me to just like be outside and like climb some rocks and be out in nature. Even though I'm like terrified of heights, like I'd be more of like in pro boulder. Let me just say like bouldering, right? Like I don't want to do El Capitan or like anything like that. Give me something where like I can still see the ground.
Okay. I was gonna say your next challenge might be you have to climb the mountain and then hike it and then climb back down on the other side. That might be a little much though. Hey,
That'd be a good
so
one.
if you're setting up your ideal training day for yourself, what's your go-to music and what's I guess this is the best one for a sports dietitian. What's your best post-training meal? And we got to make it a cheat meal.
Okay, so my best like music or whatever is I do like some of those like it's kind of like electronic like remixes like that kind of like upbeat, sort of stuff. Going for a PR, like maybe I'm gonna listen to like some like real heavy metal, like maybe some like Bloodbath or like Opeth or some like Lamb of God or like something like that. Um, yeah, original, I know. And if I'm like just gonna have like a post workout meal, like a cheat meal, um, I mean, I guess those are two different things, but sometimes. But give me like a chicken fried steak with like cream mashed potatoes, um, and like a biscuit with like some honey and maybe some green beans and a like a nice like chef salad with that. Like that sounds good to me, man.
That's fully decked out. Hey, so last one I got for you for overtime. Like, if you could sum up like the number one, like bare minimum, best piece of advice just for someone first starting out, like trying to get involved in the dietitian world or just sports nutrition in general, what do you say is the most important thing?
Have a humble student mentality. I would say have a humble student mentality. And what I mean by that is like because of the Dunning-Kruger effect, you're going to reach a period of knowledge where you think like you're this like hardcore, like you know what it takes, and like people just don't understand it, but you got that thing. Like I'm just gonna say, like a lot of us kind of like reach that point in our late 20s where we're like, yeah, man, like I figured it out. Keep going, stay humble. Don't you know? Understand that like you got 2 ears and one mouth, for a reason, and have that student mentality. So seek out a mentor. Seek out somebody like me that like I'm at a point in my career where I like how many nutrition sessions am I going to have or something surprises me at this point. I really like coaching people up to be the next best coach that they can be. And so I guess I'll plug my book, right? Like I wrote a book called Elevating Sports Nutrition. It's for free on my website. Why is it free? That's a bad business decision. I just did it because I care. Like it's like just do something like you're passionate about, man. Like we grew up in this like consumer society. Like, oh, like what's your hobby? Like I watch movies and I eat food. It's not a hobby, man. That's consuming. Like what have you created lately? Okay, like what have you invested in your community or other people or other minds? And that can be just as fulfilling as like doing something for yourself to make more money. And so like I know that sounds pretentious, right? Don't don't take it the wrong way, but like that's why I did it. Like I did it because I care about you, because I care about other people, and I just want to get the message out. And like, yeah, maybe it will be self-serving. Like maybe you like read some of my stuff or see my podcast, and you're like, oh, like I want to have him like consult with me for my program. It's like, yeah, man, you can pay me, I'll consult with you. You know what I mean? But but I think that if you like just pay it forward first, like you'll get it back in the end. Maybe I'm wrong, but even if I am, who cares?
Hey, I like it. I'm excited to dive into that. So I'm definitely we'll link everything so people can
It's a
check it out.
boring read. It's a boring read, by the way. But if you do make it through, you're going to learn some things about nutrition systems, like how to set up like a hierarchy of like who's in charge of what, how to create an education program, and this is like really applicable for strength coaches, dietitians, athletic trainers, because even if like you don't want to dive into that stuff, it gives you more appreciation of like what a good program could look like.
Awesome. Yeah, I know. We'll definitely have to catch up sometime because there's a lot of things that I want to pick your brain on and talk some more shop on. But hey, I really appreciate you coming on
Okay.
today. For anybody that's got any more questions for you, like we'll link the book and everything, but where can they follow you and reach out if anything else comes up?
Probably LinkedIn. I think that's where we met up, and just find me on LinkedIn or just reach out to me to shoot me an email.
Awesome. Well, thank you, Tony. I appreciate you coming on, man. We'll be in touch.
Thanks. Take care.
That's it for this episode of The Strength Game. Thank you again to this week's guest and to our sponsors. Be sure to connect and keep up with our guests at the links in the description below. Remember to subscribe to us on Apple and Google Podcasts, Spotify, or your favorite podcast provider to stay up to date on all future episodes. Also, check us out on YouTube and CoachO'Brien.com, where you can find all the video versions of these episodes, as well as show notes, episode schedule, and much more. Comments, ratings, and reviews are always welcome and appreciated. Thanks again for tuning in, and be sure to join us next week for another great episode of The Strength Game.